Hi there, Music 17. I wanted to do a follow-up video to last week's live Zoom session. Totally optional, but if you caught it, I was trying to show some of the envelopes in Operator, which is the synth that comes standard with, I think, every version of Ableton Live, but maybe only on Standard and Suite. So I have here an operator that I'm going to be working on, and it actually contains 4 of these oscillators, which are called operators because that's the terminology in FM synthesis. Starting with Yamaha, they decided to call them operators, partly because they don't always produce sound. Sometimes they operate on other oscillators. So all that is how they're configured. Those 4 is determined if I click in this area over here. You'll see at the top there's the different algorithms. And so here, if I click on this, all 4 of them, none of them are operating on each other. They just are basically oscillators that produce sound, and they're mixed together. The flip of that is this one all the way to the opposite side, which is what comes stock if you load up Operator, is each one in turn operates on the subsequent one, and this is frequency modulation synthesis. So if I just have the first one, it's not really FM synthesis, and if you hear that, it's just coming through like that. If I decide to add one, though, when I'm in this algorithm, it's actually affecting the one right underneath that is producing the sound. So all of a sudden, this second operator is acting on the first. And so it's not really changing, it's not adding more waveform, it's affecting the waveform of this one down here. So I'm going to start with something like that. And in fact, I can change the frequency multiplier of this frequency, and it's going to sound very different. All of a sudden, it just very quickly starts to sound more bell-like, and that's the hallmark of FM synthesis. I can actually change the waveform as well. So instead of a nice bell sound, I can make it kind of a little raspier. And then this one, I can also change the modifier to be something else. And each time you're going to hear a little bit different timbre from that. So the filter, which is what I wanted to try to show you, is the filter actually has its own envelope. So each one of these, when I click on envelope, that's actually the amplitude envelope. So if I make this a little longer, since everything is stacked, this is the one that's going to determine the final amplitude. See, it makes a little bit slower attack, and if I go really long, that attack is elongated quite a bit. If I turn it down like this, I can all of a sudden make something that's more percussive. And that has much too long of a decay to be actually really percussive. So if I'm doing down to here, there we go, or kind of somewhere in between. Anyway, so I'm going to leave that up so it just sounds when I hold the key down, and when I let off the key it just goes away. But if I click over here on the filter, this is determining what the filter does, but only if, and this is the part that I didn't think of, I assumed it was up at full, I think, during the live session. So, but it wasn't. It was down at 0, which means that this is really doing nothing for affecting the sound right now of the filter. But if I turn up the envelope, you can see, in fact, I'll turn it up to the extreme, and you can see how it changes. If I turn this down, turn up the resonant, it'll be even more obvious. You see at the end it has the little chirp. I can also, if I look at the filter, that's what it looks like right now. And if I put it down even more and play with the envelope so it's even kind of crazier, it'll, I think I had something like doing like this on the thing. And that could be even longer. One thing, I have to make the release longer for us to be able to hear that as longer. And maybe that's a little too long. I have it down at 60 seconds. So here, let me do something like that. And so now you can hear that sound of the filter. It's like I changed it like this throughout the path of that note's travel, and it's doing it all by itself because that's the envelope doing all the work. It's being held at the top, and then when I release, it'll kind of go back down in frequency a little bit. And you can hear that kind of fading away. And we could make it even more obvious or even more crazy, I guess. Not obvious, that was pretty obvious, but even crazier than that if I mess with these sounds and I mess with some of the different types of filters and I turn it into kind of, I drive it, I do some shaping after the fact, it can get a little crazy. So that's my main point that I was trying to show on Wednesday, was that this filter envelope is kind of independent of this amplitude envelope. And this one, the filter envelope is affecting the filter, amplitude envelope is just affecting the amplitude. Obviously, it's the loudness of the sound versus how the filter is changing over time, like me doing this. So there is also a pitch envelope as well that I can turn on and off. So speaking of envelopes, and this one is going to change the pitch. And right now its initial is 12 semitones, which is an octave, and then the sustain is 0. So it's going to start an octave up and then go down. And it does that pretty quickly because, oh wait, maybe I'll turn this down a little bit because it's still very long. So it does that pretty quickly, and I can kind of pull that out a little bit. So it takes a little bit longer to affect. And right now, notice it's actually going to all of these operators, including the LFO. We'll talk about that later. But it's going to A. If I turn it off, it's not going to affect that. So I can actually use this other envelope to do something different. See this destination B. Part of this is cut off because of my screen recording app, but you could do different things: volume, filter frequency, shaper drive, panorama, tone, time. You can see the different things that you can actually affect. And so you can actually use this other envelope in other ways besides a pitch envelope. But that's kind of the standard, is if you have it to the different operators, it's going to do pitch. So that's all fun. So if you have any questions on operator, it's a great little tiny synth, hardly uses any CPU. I think when I'm doing this, it goes up to, maybe it's about 8% of my computer right now, as it's kind of full bore. I also have lots of, I have 6 voices going at the same time, so that's, it can go up or down to what you need. But you feel free to use this this is actually Live 12. We have not updated the Splashtop computers to be Live 12 yet. They're still at Live 11 suite. We did get clearance to do that. So at some point, if you watch this video a little bit later, it might be already on 12. But operator is very similar from, I didn't notice really any difference in operator itself between 11 and 12. So you should be able to go into Splashtop and play around with it and see. The important thing is just to make sure that here I have to do this to try to move it, but this little key in the upper corner is checked, and that way you can use because there's no MIDI keyboards connected to those remote devices. So you just make sure that's checked, and then you can use your Splashtop keyboard on your remote machine or your local machine to record the computers on Splashtop, and then that way you get the keys. So I just use the center keys to get the kind of white notes, and then the associated upper keys to get the black notes on the top row, the Q row. Okay, well, let me know if you have any questions. Sorry that was a little longer than I thought, but I just thought I wanted to clarify that and give you some decent sounds to kind of see the examples that I was trying to show on Wednesday. A little bit more clear-headed today. Maybe that's it. Okay, see you around. Thank you.